Hey there, folks. Welcome to another edition of Stranger in a Southern Land. I, of course, am your host, Jake Manning. Today in the program, we have Jeff Reed, former NFL place kicker for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Very excited to sit down and talk with Jeff, not just because he is a two-time Super Bowl winner, but because I feel some common ground with Jeff, because he's a former NFL football player and he was defined as being an NFL football player, much like I've been defined as being a professional wrestler. So, now I'm trying to figure out what's the next step in my life and where do I go from here? And, I think Jeff's kind of got a better handle on where he's going and he's got some great ideas. And I'm just very excited to, follow him in his career and where he's going and all these adventures he's got coming up in his life. So it gives me a lot of hope in what I should be doing with my life, that's for sure. And it's kind of good to have some couch time with somebody who's in a similar predicament as I am. Maybe I should have some more couch time with somebody else, maybe somebody who I pay. But anyways, regardless of that, I'm very excited to look forward to what Jeff has got coming up in his future and follow him and everything that he's got going on. But anyways, if you want to follow me and what I've got going on, I've got a lot going on this weekend, that's for sure. This weekend, this Friday, in fact, May the 1st, I will be wrestling in Charlotte, North Carolina. It's been a while, I know it has been. But I will be wrestling at Tremont Music Hall for Trans-South Wrestling this Friday, May the 1st. Then on May the 2nd, this Saturday, I'll be wrestling for Omega Championship Wrestling at Union Pines High School in Cameron, North Carolina. And as soon as that show wraps up, I will be getting a car and heading straight to Fairmount, West Virginia for Big Time Wrestling. So if you want to figure out how that whole weekend works out for me, make sure you follow me on Twitter at ManScoutManning. If you have any questions about the podcast, about being a potential sponsor or a potential guest, please email me at jake@sslshow.com. Or if you want to book me for an upcoming wrestling show, make sure you email me at manscoutmanning@yahoo.com. So without further ado, let's jump into this interview with Jeff Reed here on Stranger in a Southern Land. So anyways, Jeff, thanks for sitting down with me or when your parents' home. I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me today. You've had a wonderful career and stuff like that we get to talk about today. So thank you very much for having me.
Well, I appreciate it. You're more than welcome here. I hope that I can give you what you're looking for. I always tend to answer extensively because when I do interviews and people have one-word answers, I'm not real happy with them.
Yeah, because you said you do your own podcast.
Yeah, I'm on Voice America Internet Radio, which is I had my own podcast, but I was basically branding myself, which is cool because I do have social media and I did play in the NFL and this and that. But on the flip side of that, when you have a team of people, they know what they're doing more than I do. So I'm on Voice America Internet Radio, which is a step below XM. And I go from about 4,000 or 5,000 total listeners annually to 450,000 a month. So it's a pretty cool thing, and it's live, and they're stationed in Phoenix, Arizona, so it's pretty cool.
Okay, well, that's awesome. Let's take a little back step here before we get into that. But did you always were you always interested in football?
No, I was, as far as watching it. I didn't play it until my senior year in high school because I had friends that were constantly hurt, constantly dislocated shoulders, getting blindsided, and they knew what they were doing, and I had no idea what I was doing. I was a soccer player, and I loved soccer, and I was the biggest guy on the field there, so I could knock the little guys around. When you get to a football field, yeah, I'm pretty big for a kicker, but the other guys hit all the time and they hit properly. It doesn't matter how big you are if you don't hit the right way. So I did kind of just stay with the soccer thing, and I played a little bit of basketball. But I finally, I guess, got the nerves to keep it clean. I got the nerves to get on the football field and at least attempt it.
Now, like I said, you're a soccer player. How good were you? A good soccer player? Like, were you? How were you?
I can't say I was national team. I wasn't. I was capable of being on the national team, but I was pretty good. Okay. And the only thing that people used to get, I wouldn't. They critique me, and it was always, I needed to lose weight to be able to run with the other guys.
Mm-hmm.
And it made sense, but I was a ball control kind of guy. I didn't have to run because I had good touch. I distributed well. I didn't have to run as much. And every once in a while when I did have to sprint, I think I shocked some people because they actually didn't know I could actually sprint that fast. So I kind of cut people off guard. But I was more of a distributor and an assist guy.
Mm-hmm. Well, like I said, you knew you're good with your feet. So what was the transition to say, I'm going to try place kicking? How did that come into the play?
Well, I had my coach in high school he was a former Dallas Cowboy, I believe offensive lineman, huge guy. I didn't know the game of football from anything. I just loved watching it, and I was a Kansas City Chiefs fan because I was born in Missouri. But that's pretty much the extent of football. I watched college football. For some reason, I liked Carolina. I didn't know why, but it was probably more because of basketball. Mm-hmm. And, which still to this day holds true because it's a basketball school, even though it's tough for a football player to say that. But I've been told since the sixth grade, you have the strongest leg on the soccer field I've ever seen. You take all the direct kicks, indirect kicks, the goal kicks, the corner kicks. You do all the special teams parts of soccer. So why don't you try kicking a football? And I was like, nah, I'll do it another time. I'll do it another time. After about 6 years of saying that, my dad said after my 11th grade year, when it was in the summertime, he said, I'm not going to push you to do something you don't want to do, but if you want to give it a shot, this is pretty much your last time to try it before you go to college, because all of a sudden you're not just going to start kicking field goals in college.
Yeah, you're not just going to walk onto a college
right
team,
and you've never done it.
Yeah.
I mean, there have been some guys that played great college basketball that became tight ends in the NFL, but that's a little different transition. It's not going from the soccer field all of a sudden you're putting pads and a helmet on, you can kick 60-yard field goals.
Yeah.
So I listened to my dad. I went out there, was very discouraged. I wasn't kicking very good. I was used to kicking a soccer ball with the curve of the inside of the outside foot, hitting with your laces, the volleys. And I finally told myself, I was like, I'm either going to be discouraged and I'm going to be completely done with this and quit before I try, or I'm going to keep going with it and maybe go to a camp and see if I can learn something. And so my head coach at East Mecklenburg High School, Bill Doolin, gave me a brochure to a camp, which I now am a coach at I've been a coach for the last 15-something years. So I was a camper. I was being coached by the guy that runs the camp's a goofy-looking guy, but he knows exactly what it takes to mold a kicker. And if I didn't have it, I told him to be honest with me. I said, listen, if I can do this and do it, 1 year and be great at it and have potential, if I keep getting better, tell me. If I don't have it, just kind of tell me, because I don't want to waste my time or my parents' money. And he said, I think you're great already, and you're very raw. So at that camp, got a lot of confidence, and I tried it out. And then at East Mech, I ended up playing 1 year. I was 9 for 11 on field goals, which is a lot of field goal attempts in high school.
Yeah.
Considering there's only 12 games, and most coaches go for it all the time. I had a 54-yarder, which at the time was second longest in the state of North Carolina. Now you got some freaks out there, so that, it's probably like 10th longest in the state. But so it was good. I mean, I missed more extra points than I did field goals. It's because I was raw. I didn't know what I was doing, and then you have thank goodness I had a great holder who was our quarterback and my best friend, so he actually cared about me. But the snapper was all over the place. The guys didn't block right. I didn't know anything about it besides kicking, and I was learning that. So. So it was very successful, but I didn't know I would make it to the NFL. That's for sure.
Yeah. Well, before we get to the NFL, you ended up in college for North Carolina. Like from just doing it that 1 year in high school, what made you think that maybe I want to continue to do this? Because you could have just done it for a year. Like I said, you were very nonchalant about it. Like, well, I'll do this. I'll try this. See how it goes. And you're like, second greatest. Longest kick in North Carolina history, and you could have just packed it up and be like, okay, that was good enough. I tried it. I'm not going to worry about it. But what made you say, you know what, I want to continue this journey?
Well, we had a couple standout players. We weren't a very good team. We were 5-6 or 6-5. We made we missed the playoffs. The last game we blew it. But they we had some guys that were standout players, and scouts came to watch them, of course. Or recruiters, colleges, whatever you want to say, came to watch them, and one of the games they watched was we played I hit a 54-yarder against Providence High School, which is our rival at East Mecklenburg. And we had no business beating them, and we blew them out. And there were a lot of scouts there looking at both teams. And so that kind of put me on the map. Then again, my scholarship offers were Appalachian State, half soccer, half football. So it would have been cool, but that's a lot going on when you're trying to get an education as well. Smaller schools for soccer, Wingate, places like that. As far as football, Alabama has showed interest, but it was a walk-on role. And I didn't know much about the school besides the football team was very successful. And then I ended up Chapel Hill. Mac Brown called and said, we don't have a scholarship open for a place kicker because we have 2 already and a punter on scholarship. And they're going to be, I think they were juniors, so they had 2 or 3 years left if they were redshirted. So I was kind of like, this can be this is really cool because I wanted to pursue journalism. And that's basically why, Chapel Hill's a great institution anyway, but I didn't choose it for football. I just chose to give it a shot as a so-called invited walk-on, which basically means you're a scrub until you earn anything. And I chose it for that reason and that reason only for education, and ended up doing pretty good.
Yeah. What attracted you to journalism?
Well, growing up, I was great in English. I was great in math. I was not a speaker by any means, which now I do motivational speaking on the side, which is kind of a cool thing because I was terrible until I took a speech class in college. And I still am terrible at times, but my stories are good, so it keeps their interest. But I was a great writer. My actual major was newspaper writing. That's not what I wanted to do, but you had to choose a focus, and that was my focus because the other ones were like broadcast and this and that. And I think I could broadcast, but to me, I don't want to sit there and break down a game, regardless of the amount of money you get paid for it. It's kind of boring. It's like I've been on sports talk radio and on all different kind of things, and it's cool, but if it's NBA season or Major League Baseball season, I don't really care. So unless I have a lead role on one of those shows, or I'm not part-time, I'm full-time, it's hard for me to really engulf myself in those sports because the NBA to me, college sports are great. I played in the NFL, so obviously I'm biased, and there's good and bad things about the NFL. But when you look at NBA and Major League Baseball, baseball is getting a little bit more competitive, but the NBA there's always 5 or 6 teams, one of them's going to win. And it's just not fun to watch. Even in the playoffs, until the finals, it's not really fun to watch for me. And I love college basketball, though, so that's just kind of weird. But so I was a good writer. I was just, when I had a girlfriend, which was very, it was more of a friend that was a girl. When I wrote notes or, the little cheesy stuff you did as kids, my friends would be like, "Man, you're a good writer. You're gonna give that to her, and she's gonna fall for you, and this and that." And then I would give it to the girl, and then she would compliment it, and then I was writing papers in my teachers in English class, and my grammar. I'm a stickler for grammar. If you text me and there's a misspelled word, I'll call you out. But then again, I'm human too, so I make those same mistakes. But that's just me. And I don't know why my passion for journalism was happened then, but I like radio now because of all my interviews I did with playing some in college, but most in the NFL level. But I was a writer because I can express myself and be opinionated with facts. So that's why I like journalism. It was just because I can express myself and people could find out who I am.
Okay. That's very cool. So when you went to Chapel Hill, your main focus was just your education and stuff like that. When you first got on the team, like I said, you're just kind of just a scrub. You're just kind of there. What were those early practices like in college? Because like I said, you've really only played football for 1 year, and now you're in there at a Division I school in the ACC conference. So like, what was that like?
Well, the actual practices themselves, they weren't so bad. It's not that the actual practice was bad, but the training, they separated scholarship players and walk-ons. And which, when they tell you going into college, they say everyone's treated the same. We're all part of this team. Yes, we've invested money in some guys, but that doesn't mean they're going to play if they're not better than you, they're lies. But at the same time, I bought into it because I knew I was a hard worker and I don't quit. Now, some of the stuff they made you do, like, for instance, if I did get a day to actually kick live with a team, it'd be in the off season. It wouldn't be in the regular season because I wasn't the star. They would have me doing all kind of hip flexor and squat work on another field, and it's called field goal period. You can't even move your legs. So you almost got hurt. Your kicks were kind of ugly. Whether they made it through or not was great if you make it. But ideally, you're better than what you're performing because you just came from doing all kind of crazy drills on your legs when you're about to use your legs. Then we had to be up at 5 a.m., training at 5 a.m. The scholarship guys would come in at 6. It was like they wanted us to quit as walk-ons, and there were about 15 of us, and half of them quit, and about 5 went to the NFL, which was really cool. So I can talk all day about that, but practices themselves, they weren't even really football focused for us as the backup kickers, because in college there's 130 players on a team. We had a main kicker, we had a backup kicker, we had a main punter. All 3 of those guys kicked off, so they shared those duties. And then it was another guy, then me, then 2 down below me. So with all those kickers, we held chains for team periods where they're running plays, first, second, third, fourth down and distance, and we ran chains. If we did it wrong, we got punished after practice. We're on another field while the main guys, the starters, were kicking. We were doing all these crazy workouts. So the practices were more of a routine that we had to get used to just to be part of the team.
And it's also probably sheer hours, because I was also an NCAA athlete. I did track and field, and I think at one point in time, like during the season, we were like between 60 and 80 hours during a week. I mean, that's almost like more than a full-time job.
Right.
And your early 20s, you're 19, and then also trying to juggle school, which is almost like now a part-time job. Were you able to handle that adjustment?
It was tough, but I managed time pretty well. I mean, I tend to be a procrastinator at times, which wasn't ever good for a deadline when it came to schoolwork. But I got it all done, and I never missed a class. It's one thing about me growing up, unless I was traveling for football, which was excused absence in college, I didn't miss a class. I mean, if I had the flu, I would just, kind of cough in my sleeve and just kind of stay away from everybody. Now if you have a fever and stuff, you're not allowed to go to school, which is probably how it should be because kids get sick so quickly. But I had perfect attendance all the way through grade school, all the way through college. I just didn't miss a class, and it's because of the way I was brought up. It wasn't acceptable to get C's, D's, and F's.
Yeah.
If you got we want all A's, but if you get a B, we're not going to say that's lack of concentration or effort. That sometimes classes are tough, and that's not your thing. That's what my parents always said. So when I look at now my girlfriend and the kids, she has kids, and I treat them as my own. When I see anything less than an A, I'm like, did you give? And I'm tough on them, not in a bad way, but I'm like, did you give all you had? And they're like, yes. And I mean, they're 6 and 8 years old, so you're not going to be great at everything. No. But the fact that you're giving a great effort is all I care about. And, if you bring home a C or D or something that needs some serious improvement, that's grounds for punishment. And that's the way I was brought up, so that's the way I would bring my own kids up. So, but overall, it's I never missed a day of class. I was completely focused, balancing the time. You work out. So the toughest part was about 2:00. You get exhausted.
Yeah.
And that's when you're about to hit meetings for football. Then if you fall asleep in a meeting, you get punished. Or if you miss something important, you'll end up getting punished, indirectly. So that was the hard part. Getting up at first, because I wasn't a party animal at all until my senior year. I started going out. But getting up, because I stayed up late to do work, I get about 4 or 5 hours of sleep. And then I would go through this long routine that you were just talking about. And then I would get back home about 7:45, 8 o'clock at night, have to do my work, same thing the next day, same thing the next day. So when you kind of get used to it, as we all do in routines, there are still days you just like, I have to get up. Oh, I got to go train. I feel horrible. I'm sore, blah, blah, blah. Or you have a test and you just kind of just want to put football on the back burner because that's why we're called student athletes, because students first. But you can't do that because then you'll lose whatever ground you have gained. So it was tough to manage the time. And on top of that, I was a walk-on, and my parents were very supportive of my sister and I, but they weren't rich by any means. So I had to work too. And that was obviously part-time, but that was also another thing that I actually looked forward to it because it was something new to me. I was working, and then I could put my schoolwork and football aside for that few hours.
Now, you said you came in, and like I said, you're a walk-on, so you're very far down the depth chart. School is the most important thing for you. That's why you're there, is an education. And you're doing it for 2 years. It wasn't really till your junior year that you really started to break out and do some playing time. But during those 2 years where you're doing this schedule, this hellacious schedule you just talked about, and just trying to stay awake at 2:00 in the afternoon, what made you want to keep doing it? What was the thing? What was the motivation? Because I did it for 2 years. I was an NCAA athlete for 2 years, and after about 2 years, I just couldn't do it anymore. It's like, this is not. I just went nuts and just quit the track team, and I can't do it. I need to focus on just getting through college right now. But, and I was actually participating in meets and doing stuff and, winning conference championships. So I had a bit of a motivation that way. But for someone that's that far down the depth chart, I'm pretty amazed that you stuck with it.
Well, yeah, I was taught growing up that no matter what happens, unless it's just, I always tell people when I'm talking to, whether it's motivationally speaking or just talking to parents or a kid, I say, don't quit at anything. But sometimes it's okay to quit because maybe it's not for you. Quit's a horrible term. I would say maybe change your career path or your path. But it's sometimes, and I've read quotes and they make sense. Sometimes it's okay to quit because then you're getting to
it's a change of direction.
Place. Yes. And maybe that's not your path and that's not your angle. But I almost transferred to UMass. Because my buddy that I worked at camp with that I told you about earlier where I learned how to kick, we were working that camp together. He was at UMass as the punter, and their special teams coach did not contact me directly because that would be illegal. Yeah. But he did talk to me, and we were friends, so it was kind of whatever. And he said, we need a kicker up here bad. You can come here and play, start next year, I promise you. Because he had film of me through my buddy, and I was just like, man, that sounds great because this is after 2 years. Then I had to wait another year. I was on the football team at North Carolina for 5 years and only played almost 2, not even 2 full years. So to stick it out, the reason I stuck it out is for education. There was one side of me that said, you know what, maybe this crap just isn't for me. But I had played sports since I'm 5 years old. That's why I'm not even retired from the NFL because I'm too greedy to retire. Because I know I can still do it, although I'm pretty sure my time is up. And it's time for me to give back instead of stay on that field as a player. So it was tough, and I had my days of doubt. I doubted myself, and I was like, maybe it's not for me, and maybe I should just focus on education and live up college like most people do and have a blast so they always get out of their system, and they're married young and this and that. But I was so dedicated that I didn't have a given up bone in my body. But I earned everything growing up. I didn't get a scholarship, obviously, in college. I was too big to be on we had 3 select teams in travel soccer in Charlotte, North Carolina. And I was on the middle one because I had the best skill level that the head coach of the other team told me, but I was not fast enough. So it's kind of like, but our team used to beat the top team, which made no sense to me. And it was consistent. It wasn't like we just got lucky one time. Yeah. So, I fought for everything my whole life. So really, I'm not complaining about anything because they're all blessings, and there's talents that I didn't even know as an 18-year-old young man, I guess I can say, or an old kid, I didn't even know I had, and I tried it out and I made a career out of it.
Yeah, obviously, and really the turning point was like in your junior year, I believe that was like your breakout year as far as kicking. What was the tipping point in that?
Well, I didn't start that year. This was my 4th year in college, so it was my redshirt junior year. I didn't start. There was another walk-on that his head coach at Northern Durham High School was our tight ends coach and recruiting coordinator. So, and he was good. He wasn't a bad kicker. I thought I was better, but it's me. So I'm not going to say, oh, he's way better than me. But he didn't kick so well in the second or third game, I got a chance against Wake Forest and went like 3 for 3, 4 for 4, kicked great, and I never really looked back. I mean, I ended up that year being a semifinals for the Lou Groza Award, which is the nation's best place kicker, and it was my first year on the field, and I didn't even play the whole season. So I ended up 80%. I was 16 for 20, and the misses were from deep, but it was kind of like I wasn't the starter. Once again, I was discouraged. I was like, man, so this guy's the same age as me. Am I never going to play? If I have that attitude, I won't. But if I say, you know what, if maybe he slips up somewhere and they give me a chance, I got to make the most of it. And it wasn't 2 weeks into that season where I got that and earned a scholarship about halfway through. And so that was nice for my parents. Saved them a little bit of money.
Yeah, I bet.
Took a while to pay that loan off. But that's when I knew that I was in a rhythm. The guys trusted me. The guys loved me. They knew, especially the older guys, the guys that grew up with me. They saw what I've been through, and they knew me off the field, second guessing myself, and so it was cool. And plus, a lot of kickers are weird. They're like hockey goalies, punters, a lot like different guys, kind of stay themselves. I was a captain, and I was also a captain for 2 years in Pittsburgh. So that speaks volumes for me. Yes, you have to produce and you have to be a productive place kicker. But if you don't have a personality and the guys don't like you, they're not going to vote you captain. So that was another huge amount of confidence that I got from playing in college. And finally earning that spot, and then, dealing with injuries and and some tough misses and this and that. You still second guess yourself at times, but that's the life of a kicker.
Yeah. Well, like you said, you're kind of off to the side while everybody else is, running plays. You're off warming up and kicking and stuff like that. Like you said, you're just kind of off on your own. And sometimes it seems like to me that kickers could be seen by the team as not one of the boys, but obviously you weren't that. What was the thing that you did that endeared yourself and to be a captain or be part of the team, or people saw you as like, no, this guy isn't just somebody off in the corner. He's one of us. What was some of the things you think you did that endeared everybody?
I think the biggest thing I did was, no matter what the workout was that day, I was lifting weights with the linemen. I was lifting weights with the tight ends, linebackers. I was in their group. I was just as strong as some of them, which kind of set me back a little bit because of flexibility. I needed to be more flexible, but I was in the moment, so I was trying to lift with them and compete with them, and I think they saw that. So I wasn't just that guy over there just getting a little sweat on cardio and stretching and then getting out of there. I mean, we didn't really have that choice either, because once it's funny how things changed, because once I got the starting position, the strength coach was like, listen, the most important thing is we maintain where you are and you stay healthy. Before, it was like, let's go over here and pull sleds with your hip flexors 100 yards, then we'll go kick. It's funny how things change. But, it was I think my big I'm outgoing and I'm a jokester and guys like that. And, it was fun. Sometimes it's overboard, so they want to kill you. But that's what everything, pushing one too many buttons. But at the same time, when you're in the weight room and you're working hard with the guys, they know my role is not to be a headbanger and knock somebody unconscious. But I also know my role is not an easy job. You start to in college, especially when I started playing, more people, instead of saying you're just a kicker, were like, man, you're a football player, just happens to be a kicker. And I like that. It wasn't because I went through tackling drills and everything. I thought that was kind of ignorant because that's not my job. And if I get hurt doing that, that's stupid. But I did stuff with the guys all the time to be a part of that team and to say, listen, I'm doing this, not really because I want to, but because this is how I earn my respect. So I think being in the weight room and doing the same workouts as your teammates of all positions, that's when you earn respect.
Yeah, because there was a kid in our neighboring town who just kicked field goals because mommy didn't want him to get hurt, and he was always separated from everybody else. And we as an rival school just hated him. If we ever wanted to get our hands on him, we wanted to murder him.
Right.
And I can also feel that probably some of his teammates probably felt that because he was always off kicking. He was a very good kicker, and he went on to kick in college. But yeah, like you said, you can kind of be isolated, and that can turn people off right away.
Yeah, and there's a lot of coaches in high school that don't know anything. Well, pretty much every level I played at, and obviously I played at the highest level you can play. The coaches don't know anything about kicking or punting. They think they do, But if you actually listen to what they say, write it down, and apply it, they're wrong. I mean, it's a very complicated, simple thing, which sounds funny, but it is. It's simple, but if you don't do the simple things right, it's extremely complicated to kick a football. You can't kick it like a soccer ball. You can't punt a football like a soccer goalie. That's how I punt. That's why I never, panned out to be a punter. Because if I hit a spiral, it's going 60 yards, but the next 4 will be ducks. But there's kickers that I work with, I coach now. There's about 5 of them, and 3 of them are like, yeah, I kick and I leave practice. And I was like, now, that's cool that you can get home early, and you may not have to do the conditioning or something at the end. But don't you think staying an extra 30, 40 minutes with your guys, I don't mean being a distraction, not screwing around, but, throw some water bottles to the guys that are working their tails off, or, cut up with some guys and let them have fun out there instead of think it's a job. Don't you think that would be good? In San Francisco, when I played for the 49ers after the Steelers, we used to do field goal period early, and once we did the punt or kickoff period later in practice, we went home, and the guys were still on the field, and I had a problem with that. But then the guys that were there, who the punter's still there, they were like, "Dude, you have to come with us, though, man, because if you stay behind, then we're going to get called out. And we're all going to have to stay from now on. We're beating traffic." And I'm like, "Dude, we're getting paid pretty good for this job, so I'd rather sit in traffic and be part of this team." And so to me, it was kind of awkward, and I felt embraced by the 49ers because I had 2 Super Bowl rings. But other than that, and all the guys liked me, and they were cool. But I didn't feel like part of the team like I did in Pittsburgh. Like we could have a day where nobody was kicking at all. There was no special teams, and we had to be out there with our helmet. We had to stretch with the team. We had to keep ourselves busy. But I think that's how it should be. It's your job. So if you have a day off where you can rest your legs, cool. I mean, do it. But that doesn't mean you go home or go play golf or go fishing. I mean, it's a job, man. And so that bothered me a little bit. But what I tell these kids coming from your story is, I don't care what you do besides don't be a distraction, but you need to stay around at practice until everybody else leaves.
Yeah, because you need to be part of a team.
Yeah, and then you could be the first one out. That's fine. But you need to be there with your team.
Yeah, exactly. Now, before you get to the highest level that you can play, what are some other highlights in college that you think of? What are some fond memories or career moments in college that really strike out in your mind?
Well, most of them are good. The first time ever on the field, besides just running out of the tunnel with my hand up, and that was my claim to fame, was really cool. My first home game, my first game was at Wake Forest that I actually played in. First home game was, I believe, East Carolina at home. I may be wrong there, but it's pretty sad I don't remember that. But I think it's East Carolina, and that was a rival as well, even though it was an ACC play. And I hit a game winner against them, and that was my first feeling of what a game winner feels like. Guys tackling you, and strength coach came from ECU to Chapel Hill, so it was like a huge thing. But all those anytime you go on the field when you're limited to 5 to 10 plays a game, you have to cherish it and embrace it, because those other guys, when they throw an interception, they can throw 4 touchdowns and everybody forgets about the interception. Or if you fumble, even though they should embrace that as well, and most guys do, but not all, you have a lot of opportunities to make up for a screw up, and you have a lot of opportunities to mess up if you've been doing great. So it's a little different flow. But I will say the one thing that's messed with my head the most, and it wasn't a kick, it was I rolled my ankle in practice probably 10 days before we were going to play Oklahoma, who was the defending national champions in Norman, Oklahoma. And I grew up in Moore, Oklahoma before I moved to Charlotte. And that's right down the street from Norman. So I watched Bosworth and Jamel Holloway, and Mac Brown was there at the time, and Barry Switzer. And, so it was like I couldn't wait to play there because I had been in that stadium so many times to watch. And then I rolled my ankle, tore ligaments. Of course, I tried to play, hurt my hip, ended up having to get hip surgery in the NFL. But that was one of the things that I was looking so forward to. There's so many times in life, whether it's a dinner or a game or whatever it may be, you look so forward to it and it doesn't pan out like you thought, and you're just kind of disappointed. And with me, I mean, I had tears in my eyes because I rolled my ankle and I knew that on my plant foot, I was not going to be able to play, but I had them tape it like a cast, and I went out for pregame warm-ups, and I ended up hurting my hip, like I said, so it was worse. But the fact that I could at least try to play, it was kind of cool. And I still went out there for captains with no uniform on. It was tough, but that stuck out in my mind and always will, because John Bunning was the head coach then, and he asked the seniors, he said, do you guys want to play Oklahoma? We'll start the season a week early. I mean, and everybody was like, why would you even ask that?
Yeah.
You know, and we were getting completely murdered, and we lost by like 12 or something. So it was cool. The atmosphere was great. To play a national champion was really cool. But, you know, so I had a lot of great moments, and I won all ACC and academic all ACC and all these great awards that, you know, come along with putting time and effort in. So it paid off, and I can't really complain about anything I learned along the way either.
Mm-hmm. Oh, good. So anyways, from college to pros, you went undrafted and with New Orleans Saints. Just talk about that process. I don't know if undrafted is kind of the standard quo for place kickers, or was it one of those things that they just didn't know because you hadn't been doing it that long, or they weren't for sure? Just talk about that transition.
Well, I wasn't even invited to the combine. So undrafted is okay, because if there's 10 to 15 kickers in a draft, maybe 3 or 4 go.
Yeah, maybe. I was going to say, I don't think there's a lot of draft picks used on place kickers.
And except for Sebastian Janikowski, nobody's going to go before the 4th round either.
Yeah.
So it's actually kind of better if you don't get drafted if it's after the 5th round, because then you can choose where your best fit is.
Yeah, exactly.
Even though you're missing out on a little bit of signing bonus, but you know, it's not all about the money. But you know, I went. The only reason I went to the Saints. Well, let's go to Pro Day first. Yeah. At a Pro Day, Julius Peppers, Ronald Curry, all of these guys, Ryan Sims, all of these guys were at the Pro Day I was at. So they were head coaches from all around the league, and owners even. So obviously the guys under them they matter, but what matters most is those guys were at our Pro Day in Chapel Hill. So that was cool, but they told me I had to be ready by a certain time. An hour later, I was trying to stay warm, but I was getting tight. And so finally I grabbed this guy, and I said, are you a scout? And he goes, yeah. He said, I'm a personnel guy. And I said, you're just standing over here talking. Do you mind watching me kick, just so I feel like I kick for somebody? And he goes, when are you kicking? And I said, I'd like to kick an hour ago, but I'll go kick now. And I said, my footballs are outside. And he goes, sure, I'll come watch you. So he came out there, and I started off really hot. I was kicking well. And he had contacted a few other guys that were in the indoor facility watching the other guys compete and perform. And about 5 guys ended up coming out there. So it was cool. And I had I think I missed a couple, but they were longer field goals. And I had a very consistent showing, which was a good thing. And if it wasn't for me to ask anybody, I would have been out there just, picking my nose, doing nothing.
Yeah.
But I did do, they have the 225-pound bench press, and I told them I was doing that, and the flexibility, I did that, and they're like, why are you doing the bench press? And I said, just watch. And I got 19 reps on 225, so they were like, dang. And I was almost to 20 and about dropped it on my neck, so I let the guy touch the bar. But the fact that a place kicker can do 225 19 times, it opened some eyes, and that's the only reason I did it. I mean, I wouldn't sit here and do, whatever kind of other squat record. My knees were horrible, and that's why they're horrible today. But it was a process where I was trying to do anything I could to get people to pay attention to me. And I kicked well. It ended up that the only reason I went to New Orleans is because, and that same guy that I tapped on the shoulder that was with the Colts at the time, that came and watched me first at the Pro Day, he was, I don't know where he is now, but he was with San Francisco, and that's why I went out there to kick for San Fran after Pittsburgh. So that's a connection that I know that's where it came from, and his name's Tom Gamble, and to this day, if I reached out to him, he called me right back. It's just one of those relationships. But I ended up going to New Orleans because our head coach knew the special teams coach extremely well, and I went there and kicked behind John Carney, who was an older guy that, he was very consistent and had a 15, 16, 17-year career. It was crazy. So I pretty much knew my role. But if you look at numbers, I outkicked him. Obviously, I was a little stronger, but I was also 22. He was 35. And he ended up playing until he's 40.
Yeah.
So they released me, and it was a long string of tryouts, about 10 weeks of tryouts of 7 different teams. I only kicked bad with the Giants. They pretty much told me. Jim Fossil was the coach there at the time. He said, "You're not good enough to play at this level, but thanks for coming here. We were gonna sign you today if you kicked well." And I didn't kick well. I didn't deserve it.
Yeah.
But it was just kind of awkward to me. I was like, man, that's not what you want to hear.
Yeah, obviously.
So I kicked great at all my other tryouts except for Pittsburgh, which was in November of 2002. It was sleeting. It was complete mud. You couldn't see any chalk or anything on the field.
So wonderful conditions.
Yeah, it was perfect. And coming from North Carolina, I didn't really have too much experience with that. So I had the wrong shoes. I didn't plant right. I was falling. Ended up that there were 4 of us, and we all made about the same amount of field goals. I made the longest one, but also missed the shortest one out of the group. Kickoffs were all average all the way around. I was laughing the whole time because it was like, I can't believe this is an NFL field. I mean, it's one thing to be cold and sleeting. That's weather. That's fine. But when you can't stand up, I mean, it's kind of ridiculous. So anyway, one by one after that tryout, guys came down and, they said, "Nice meeting you." They'd go catch their flight. "Nice meeting you, go catch their flight. Nice meeting you, go catch their flights." And they called me up. And Bill Cowher and Kevin Colbert, Kevin Colbert's still there, the GM. And he goes, "Well, this is Tuesday. You're going to play for us Sunday against the Bengals at Heinz Field." And I just sat there and stared, and my mouth was open. And he goes, "Well, you don't have anything to say?" And I said, I don't know what to say. I said, I go from not even know if I'll play in college to I'm getting a shot in NFL for a team like this with this tradition.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Yeah." And I said, "Well, I have one question. This is like the only tryout I flew to with just a toothbrush and a change of underwear." I said, "Can I fly home now? Can you pay me like my first game check? And I'll fly home, get some clothes because I have nothing to wear this week, and then fly back." And he looks at me, and it wasn't for 5 seconds, and he said, "No, actually you can't. Just wear what you have. Wear it all week. We'll give you some Steelers clothes from the equipment managers. And if you don't kick well Sunday, you can stay home." So I'm like, I finally made it.
Something I said?
Yeah. Like I finally made it. I just signed a contract it was like surreal to me. And then this guy's telling me, which is not this guy, he's the general manager. Yeah. He's telling me, "If you don't kick good Sunday, then we don't want you anyway." And I went 3 for 4 and kicked very well, and we won. And I can hear it now. I get the chills thinking about it. People chanting my name because the kicker before me was just struggling and hurt. Mm-hmm. And, it was the best feeling in the world, and then I stuck there 9 years.
Oh, wow. So like you said, it's storied tradition. I mean, that's got to be – I mean, the Steelers, I mean – what was that like? Like how? I mean, you've obviously played for different NFL teams. How were the Steelers different? What made them different than everybody else?
Well, just being in the locker room initially, like for the first 5 years, it was extremely fun. Mm-hmm. It was like college all over again. Yeah. Only you're getting paid to play, and your only focus was, besides charity events and giving back to the community, your only focus was getting better on the field. Mm-hmm. And everybody had the same focus. And it was like, I didn't really expect that. Then it started turning into a business. I saw guys, because of their salaries, getting cut because they were our best players. Mm-hmm. And then, people retiring, and to me, they seemed okay. They weren't even hurt. And I'm like, all right, here comes the business side. Then I was part of that. Mm-hmm. But overall, in Pittsburgh, it was a college atmosphere. It was fun. It didn't feel like a job, even though with the hours you put in, it wasn't just you show up on Sunday, you get paid a lot of money, and you kick. I mean, it was every day of the week there was something, except for Tuesday was our off day. Mm-hmm. But they were full days too. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday were 7:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. Mm-hmm. Just like a work day. Only you're doing different things, and you're not constantly on the grind where you have to, make a sale or whatever. Yeah. So, but the biggest thing about Pittsburgh is their fan base. It doesn't matter where you play. Obviously, at Heinz Field, it was crazy. But even in Cleveland or Cincinnati or Baltimore, even though we were outnumbered in those stadiums, it's loud. You see terrible towels everywhere. Those fans, I mean, it's almost like they have a problem. And it's a good one if you're on the team.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like one of those things where like the city is a ghost town and, destroys itself if we lose. Or if we win, I mean, there's still people getting arrested because they're out of control. But like, it's tough to go out in public because people just think you're like Michael Jackson at his last concert, and it's a great feeling. But it's crazy how serious people in Pittsburgh take their sports teams. And now that the Pirates and Penguins are good as well, Penguins were pretty good when I was there. Anyway, they did win the Stanley Cup, and I got to see that. That was cool. But the Pirates were not good. Now everybody's good. We're pretty good. I mean, Steelers could be better. But the fan base, man, is just they travel with you. They love you everywhere you go, whether it's Giant Eagle's the chain there, like Harris Teeter here down south. But you go in there and you're signing 100 autographs, you're taking pictures. You can't even get your grocery shopping done. But it can be annoying if you let it be, but I embraced it. And I thought this is one of the coolest things. You go from a soccer player that was called overweight to scared to play football to trying football out to actually getting a shot in college and a great education. Now people are stopping you in the aisles of a grocery store because they recognize you, whether it's your crazy hair or they just recognize you, or it's a pretty cool process. But the fan base is what's so special about Pittsburgh.
Well, and obviously, and especially as a place kicker, because there are those moments where everybody is focused on you, and there's fans praying that you're going to do your job and everything like that. There's such a center of attention, and then if it doesn't go the way they want it, it's like you said, it tears them up inside. Yeah,
the pressure was tremendous. It was, but and it didn't matter if it was an extra point because I hit game-winning extra points where the game was tied, and the other team was going to bring it, and because they jumped off sides 2 or 3 times just because this was the final play of the game, and those are very intense moments, and you have to speed up so you don't get your team can win, and that changes all your mechanics. So, but yeah, just knowing that the city's happiness lies on your shoulders in game-winning kicks. I didn't ever think about it like that when I was out there. But when you look back, you're like, I mean, I had people come up to me at autograph signings throughout the week and say, "Oh, I named my baby JR because of you. Those are your initials, and you hit a game winner the day he was born." And I mean, it's crazy. And then people tell you to sign their skin, and you sign it, and then a week later, there's a tattoo of my signature on their body. And I'm like, I don't care how diehard you are. Like, you're getting a tattoo of my autograph? That's crazy. You're paying money for my autograph on your arm. But it wasn't just me. It was everybody. And if you're not a walk-on, if you're a practice squad player, you're just as prominent to them as a starter because you're part of the Steelers.
Yeah, because you're Pittsburgh Steelers.
Right.
Anything good you do or anything bad you do, it's Pittsburgh Steelers did this. Pittsburgh Steelers showed up this.
Yeah.
You have that title, especially with such a storied franchise.
Oh, yeah.
So, but also with the team, you endeared yourself to your teammates in college by your hard work. What were some of the things you did in the NFL to endear yourself to your teammates?
Well, in the NFL, and it sounds funny, but you don't have to work as hard if you don't want to. Because the strength coaches are paid to help you, enhance you, but if they hurt you, they get fired on the spot. College, there's meathead strength coaches, there's great strength coaches. It varies, and so they're going to push you until you throw up.
Yeah, pretty much they hurt you. It's like you just weren't tough enough.
And it's like, well, that's your fault. You had bad form, or whatever. Maybe you're not supposed to be in the football team. But in the NFL, it's approached way differently. Now, there's guys that work their tails off, and like James Harrison works out in the off season 6 hours a day. To me, I work out 4 or 5 days a week, and sometimes I just want to take a month off. But I know I can't because I'll feel sloppy no matter how I look. But I used to work out before practice. I did cardio. After practice, if it was legs, I would do my workout after practice. If it was upper body, I did it before practice, and I always did cardio after practice. So I was one of the first ones to get there, unless there was early meetings in different positions, because we didn't have as many meetings, of course. There's only so many plays we have to know, and I was almost one of the last ones to leave. And it's because I didn't want to sprint out of there because what's more important in my job when I'm performing not only for my teammates and for the organization and my family, but for a city and in a global spotlight. I take it seriously. So if I have enough energy in the tank to do 30 more minutes of cardio, as long as I don't kill myself or hurt myself, why not? It's only going to make me better. It's not going to break me down. So another big thing, whether I earned the teammates' respect, was being around them and working out all nonstop. I went to a ton of charity events. I never had my own charity, but every time someone said, can you be here at this time? I may not have been right there at that time, but I was at their event, and that was just me. I think it's very important to give back, and I give back to this day. Mm-hmm. And so that was I think that was respected. And I was the team clown. I mean, everybody, the Cowher and Tomlin, they loved me. We joked around a lot. It was tough to get Coach Cowher to joke around, but I found a way somehow. Tomlin was, even though he doesn't like this saying, he was one of the guys. He's easy to play for, but if you're out of line or you're not doing your job, he will call you out. But he also knows he's coaching professional football players, men, and if you don't live up to your expectations, you'll just be fired on the spot too. Mm-hmm. So I think it was more along the same lines of I earned my respect from my teammates because I was performing and I hit some big kicks, but teammates saw me screw around, have a good time, work hard behind the scenes. But when it was time to play, I took it seriously, and I think that's where the respect came from.
Obviously. Now, let's talk about the 2005 season. You had a rare opportunity that only a handful of people in this world have ever experienced. You played for a Super Bowl team, caliber team. The question I have is, is there any point in the season, I mean, obviously always the goal is to go on, win the Super Bowl and everything else, but was there ever a moment in time during that 2005 season where you're like, we're a contender, we can probably do this? Because you're obviously very honed into the team because you're there, you're staying late with the workouts, you're part of the team. Was there ever a point in the locker room where you feel like, we're a contender, we can do this?
Well, the crazy thing about that season, as opposed to the 2008 Super Bowl 43 that we won against Arizona in Tampa, we were good that whole year. But in 2005, we pretty much knew this was Jerome's last go-around. Mm-hmm. We also knew the Super Bowl was in Detroit, which is his hometown, it wasn't like a fairy tale. This was just things we all thought about.
There's a good story there. And if it gets to there, because at that moment in time, it's still in the fantasy set. Right. You're like, you're still in that point of like, our goal is to win the Super Bowl. But it's a situation, you're saying that to yourself, but you might not believe it yet.
Right. So, but we were 6-6, and we never lost again. So at 6-6, we were a great team that couldn't win a close game. We never got blown out. We didn't play bad football. If it came down to the fourth quarter and it was close, we lost. Mm-hmm. If we were ahead by 10 points or more, we won. But we were 6-6 and just never lost again. So that's why that season was so special. If you look at the comparison of rings, the 2008 ring, Super Bowl 43, is double the size. Well, that's because it's the sixth trophy. That's because they get bigger. I mean, when they win a seventh one, I couldn't imagine what it's going to look like. I mean, because I can barely fit the sixth one on my finger, and my hands are so small. But I don't know, man. It was just one of those things where we were right there, but we couldn't get over the hump. And then all of a sudden, we kept winning and winning and winning. And they were the close ones, and then we'd blow somebody out. And there's another close one, then a blowout, and we're like, okay. Now we found our niche. I wouldn't want to play us. We sneak in as a 6th seed. We go on the road the entire 4 games, and we pretty much dominate. Even though the Colts game, I think that season they were 15-1, 14-2, but they were like 14-0, and then they started resting their starters. But we pretty much manhandled them and had an unlucky fumble on the 1-yard line. Jerome, somebody hit the ball with their helmet. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, that game was over then. But we pretty much ran them, even though the score was close. And, we went to Denver, blew them out, and the Super Bowl wasn't even a game either, really. Yeah. So it was that was the kind of team that you don't want to play come playoff time. Somebody that's
not afraid to lose.
Right. We expect to win, but we've been in all these close games all year. We've lost a bunch. We've won a bunch. So if it's close, good luck to you guys. That was our attitude. And, to see when we did lose and we were under 500, earlier in that season. I mean, there wasn't like, oh, come on, guys, you suck, man. What are you doing? It was kind of like, we're just that close. So let's go over it. And so, it was deeper than that. And there was some anger and frustration. But when you look at the big picture, you look back, you're like, I remember a million times coaches, players, trainers saying, man, we're that close. And we did it.
There was no finger pointing. Yeah, it was everybody's like, we lost together. We got to figure out where we need to figure out.
And I've been on a Steeler team where we didn't have such a great year. We didn't make the playoffs, which was very rare. And there was a lot of finger pointing, and it's not going to solve anything. You can have a great game. I could go 5 for 5 on field goals, but our punter played terrible, and then we lose by 3. And I'd be like, if he'd have punted better, well, what is that going to prove? I mean, he had an off day. I've had off days. Everybody has. And I was on a couple teams, and in San Francisco, they did that big time. It's the only reason that team was not successful before Harbaugh got out there is because they pointed fingers all the time. And I was only there for 4 games, so about 6 weeks.
Well, this is going to be the dumbest question I probably ask you in the course of this interview.
Perfect.
How awesome was it? How awesome was it to win a Super Bowl? Like, what is that like?
Well, the very first Super Bowl we played in Detroit, when we just talked about XL, I had the opening kickoff. So as a kicker and as the game starts, it's a game. Yeah. I mean, obviously you're playing for all the marbles, and both teams, all the fans, I get it. But when you're in the Super Bowl and you're the opening kickoff and you're the kicker, and obviously you're looking at the ball, because if you're not, you're going to miss the ball. But I almost was blinded to a point where I almost missed the football. That's how I felt. And It was one of my best kickoffs of the season. But I was going to the ball, and this light you have on us for this interview, it was 1,000,000 times that bright. And I was looking ahead to the ball, but it was so bright, I was kind of squinting. Kind of felt like I missed the ball. Yeah. So me personally, that was the biggest and coolest thing that I was ever a part of in the Super Bowl besides the games themselves. But I don't think it kind of sinks in until after the parade.
Yeah, I would think, because you don't want to really think about, like, okay, this kickoff there. Not only do you have the people watching me here, not only do we have the lights and the cameras, but there are how many people watching this at home, and everything else.
Well, the media day, when you're talking to people of, Hispanics and people that are, movie stars that are interviewing you, stuff like that, you start to realize what stage you're on. And then you have to wear credentials everywhere you go. They won't let you back into your own team hotel, regardless if you're a player. They have to call down security, and it's a mess. It happened to me because I thought I had it in my pocket. That's why they said wear it around your neck, because they can always see it. But, and you realize what stage you're on there too as well. But, after the game and the confetti's dropping and everybody's hugging and crying, and parents are jumping out of the stands into my arms so they can come celebrate and stuff like that, that's when you realize, okay, you've done something big. But then you pass the trophy around on the airplane on the way home, and everybody's kind of hungover, and it's been a good night, no sleep. And who cares, by the way? Yeah. Because parents and players combined, it was great atmosphere, great camaraderie. You pass that around, you kiss the trophy. Okay, now it's starting to hit home. Then you go to two or 3 days later, you're in a parade with over 250,000 people. And you're like, okay, now we've done something here. And then come the summertime when you have the ring ceremony, man, it kind of comes to fruition. And you're like, I knew we did this, but, man, we did it. And you're pointing at your ring. And so it's a cool thing. And you see your name on your ring, and you see the score. And it's such a huge achievement, because it's great to get millions of dollars. Some of those guys made 10 million times more than me. But if you get a ring, I mean, guys like Tony Gonzalez that played however many seasons, great tight end, he only made the playoffs one time in his career, and they lost in the first, second round. But, I mean, so he has all the money in the world and a healthy family and all the stuff he's grateful for, I'm sure. But I know he regrets not winning a Super Bowl at all those years. But those are the things you play the game for.
Yeah, because you achieve something that every American man has ever dreamed or hoped they could ever possibly do, and you were one of those select few.
Right, and just seeing the reaction when I'm at an appearance, or I'm just happen to have my ring on, which is very rare these days unless I'm at an appearance. Letting them put it on for a picture, like they're shaking, like I just handed them like $1 million bill, And because they're Steeler fans, and so that's obviously cool.
Yeah.
But to wear a piece of jewelry that weighs that much, that means so much, and it's part of history, I mean, it's a pretty cool thing.
Absolutely. Was it now you guys went back to back? How tough was that to win your second one?
Well, it was tough, but the season after we won Super Bowl 40, we were not good.
Yeah.
I think it was Cowers last year. He was, his wife was struggling with the cancer, and I wouldn't say his heart wasn't in it, but you could kind of tell that he had lost a little bit of his firepower because he was so fiery. And we played like that. We fed off of his energy, and we played like that. And there were times when we dug down deep and we won, but we didn't win any close games that year. It was nothing like the Super Bowl run. And then the year after, Tomlin came in, lost in the playoffs to the, I believe, to the, I don't know, Jaguars or somebody. But it was a good run. And then all of a sudden we came to fruition again, and we had a very dominant year. With Super Bowl 43. So, I mean, and then to be honest, the year I got released, I played 10 games that year. They went to the Super Bowl again in Dallas and lost to Green Bay. So, and I told them the reason for that is because I wasn't on the team. But I mean, there's other people that were involved too. But it was just fun to say that, even though that would be cool for them. I don't know if I'd have gotten a ring since I played more than half the season. I was sure fighting for one though through the captains. But anyway, man, it was a great run. I always find ways to complain daily, but to be on such a stage in a sport, or just to be alive and healthy, is a great thing.
Yeah. Well, what happened with the relationship with the Steelers? Was it a financial thing, or what was the fall apart there?
There was never a true reason given to me. There was a 30-second phone call, which I was not real happy with. Because I was really close with Art, Dan, Tomlin. My coaches, Coach LeBeau came down as the defensive coordinator, and kind of had tears in his eyes and gave me a hug and said, "I'll be missed." And I don't know, man. I got the call, and I kind of felt like I was given the runaround as far as, no, we're not working out any kickers, man. You're my guy, this kind of thing. And then
because they predominantly, I believe it was Gary Anderson they had for years. Am I getting him right? Because Steelers always predominantly had somebody kicking for them for quite some time.
Oh yeah, Gary was there.
Yeah, because I mean, usually in an NFL you'll see a guy kick for a team for a decade,
right? And my whole goal was, and I think my agent probably played a role in screwing this up a little bit too, just being, for when my contract was up, I talked to Colbert face to face, and he said, we want to give you a 5-year deal so you retire here. And I said, if I can make 5 more years in this league, I'll be more than happy to retire. And after that conversation, things didn't go as expected. Casey Hampton got paid a lot of money. I got franchised, which is okay. I mean, it's guaranteed money. It's 1 year. It's no signing bonus, but it's the highest paid year I've ever played by far.
Yeah.
But the thing that bothered me was it was a 30-second phone call. I didn't really know. I mean, if they'd said, this is the reason we're doing this, and I kept it to myself, then so be it. But I was never given that. It was just kind of like, we're moving in a different direction. Thanks for all you do. But at the time my contract was up, before I got franchised, I was number 1 in the NFL in percentage. Number 1. So, of course, I wanted to get paid like the number 1 kicker, but all I asked for was top 5.
Yeah.
And that's, when I say all I asked for, it's a lot of money, but it wasn't outrageous.
But you have the case to back it up. You have the numbers.
Right. I had the leverage to do that. And then I once again said, before I got franchised, just tell me what your best offer can be, and we'll go from there. I never got another offer. And they promised to tell me another offer, so then they published an article saying Jeff Reed called the Rooney's liars, and once that goes public, that's not good, because I didn't say that. And it was a misunderstanding, and it is the media. I'm part of the media now, so I understand how they could have twisted that in the Rooney's favor and not in my favor. But it was more of, I just disagree with somebody saying something and not doing it, but I never said, well, the Rooney's lied to me, so I didn't say that. And it was a little bit bitter. It was bittersweet, because so many great things came from Pittsburgh, and I got my life started, and I got a car, and I could do this for the people and that for people, and give back for the community and charity events and all that stuff. But I honestly, to this day, I think that they weren't willing to pay me a certain amount of money, and they just kind of just made that decision and took a cheaper route.
Yeah.
And Sean is a good friend of mine, Sweejum, and he's now got a new contract. So, kudos to him. But it was tough for like the first 3 years. I was bitter. Like I didn't want to see him lose and get beat.
Mm-hmm.
But deep down inside, I was like, I should be out there.
Yeah.
Pissed all the time. And it was just not the way to live. And so since in the last year or two, I've been showing my face a lot more. Mm-hmm. And going to the facility and talking to coaches and meeting new players, because that locker room is very different now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and then you have Ike and Ike Taylor and Troy retiring, and guys going to different teams. I mean, so it's a completely different team now. Mm-hmm. So I try to shake some hands, and I'm a Steeler fan. It's not that. It was just when you're done so much for somebody and you get a 30-second phone call, just me being me, because I know the NFL is a business. I just wanted an explanation. That's it.
Yeah.
And so I can't really put my finger on why I was no longer a Steeler in 2011. But if I had to make a reason up, I would just say it was just time for me to go and not be there.
Mm-hmm. Well, and then you bounced around to a couple of teams. Why don't you think anything stuck with any certain team? I mean, you've already talked about the discussion of San Francisco and how they did business.
Yeah.
It's probably not the way that you were used to business being handled.
Yeah, it was very different. But San Francisco also had some great players and great friends I have from there. Mm-hmm. And because I was only there a couple months, or a month and a half. But in a month and a half, the kind of guy you can meet a lot of people and get respected and have a good time. Yeah. And so I still have a handful of friends, including guys like Patrick Willis that are, he's retired now, but one of the greatest linebackers ever play. Mm-hmm. And guys like him that I keep in touch with and are good guys. Coaches. Tom Sula just got the head coaching job. He was the guy that I was around the most there, and he was a defensive line coach. He didn't, but he embraced me, and mm-hmm. he was happy to have me. And he used to coach actually Catawba outside of Charlotte, so okay. That was pretty cool. But they did things very differently. Mm-hmm. It did not feel like a college atmosphere. It felt like strictly you go to work and you leave work. Mm-hmm. I wasn't real close to the snapper or punter. They had families and kids, which is fine, but they were just very standoffish. I mean, they did good work and helped me out mm-hmm. and led me in the right direction, but it just wasn't extremely fun, mm-hmm. and the fun was taken out of the game. And then Harbaugh came in. I was excited. He sent me an email saying, I can't wait to get this started. I went out there, kicked for him, and they said good things, and then they ended up signing. I didn't get cut. I just hadn't been re-signed, but they told me I was going to be re-signed when I went out there. They said we're making a decision next week. By the time I landed back here in North Carolina from California, they had signed David Akers. So, it was odd, but it was another one of those business moves that you have to accept. Mm-hmm. Went to Seattle after the lockout. I was told a lot of things there. I won't go into it. Mm-hmm. There were some bold-faced lies there. And I loved the facility. I loved the players. I loved Pete Carroll's fiery attitude and how he embraced coaching. And I also knew they'd be very successful, and that's why they have been. There's some things there that I can't rest with, because I don't understand when I'm changing my number from 5 to 3, because I was number 5 in the preseason, and Coach Carroll had just told me 2 hours before I got released that I was going to be probably a captain. He'd appoint me a captain because I had 2 rings and I was a leader and I've been consistent for 10 years in my career, mm-hmm. and blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden you get called when I'm changing my locker all over to number 3. And they're like, well, we're going to take a little cheaper route with Stephen Hauschka, who has kicked very well for them. But he was on the Broncos. He was the backup for the Broncos then. Mm-hmm. And, it's okay if you do that, but don't get my hopes up. I was already starting to have my car shipped and do this and do that and get ready for the season. And, so that was rough. But other than that, I got a couple tryouts after that. And one tryout I didn't deserve the job. The other one I did and didn't get it. Mm-hmm. So that was my NFL career.
Well, so that's the thing. It seems like you ran into kind of a common theme of like, oh, we're just going to go with the cheaper option.
I'm sure. When I was first started, they didn't want to take a chance on a rookie.
Yeah.
Because money wasn't a thing. Mm-hmm. It was all about, well, we need a veteran. You're a rookie. That's how many teams told me that until Pittsburgh took a chance on me. Yeah. And now it's totally switched, where if you're pretty good as a kicker or punter or long snapper, you're going to replace the older guy because of money.
Well, I'm sure at a certain point, as you're going to team to team to team, you're like, I'll be the cheaper option, please.
Yeah, and you can't. You know, there's like I was only getting minimum for a 10-year player in Seattle, but a minimum is nearly $1 million when you can get another guy for $350. So to them, that was a lot of money, which doesn't make much sense when in the big picture of things, but to them, that was their excuse.
Yeah, but like I said, as a kicker, you want a guy. That's why I said that there's a lot of teams that have kickers for 10 years. It's something you don't realize you need until you need them.
Right.
You know, and when it's a situation, when you got a good kicker, you want to kind of just, I'm going to hang on to this guy for the next 15 years. So I don't have to go around and shop around for a guy or get those frustrations of, oh, this guy's kind of okay. And we put him in the clutch. I don't know what's going to happen, but let's just try not to get in the clutch.
Right.
And then when you need somebody in the clutch, like, oh, why didn't we spend the money?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much the life of kicker, though. I mean, guys like Vinatieri been around forever, and he had a great year last year, probably his best of his career. But, you know, there's not a whole lot of guys that get to play. I mean, even though everyone's like, oh, you could play to your 40 or 50, and I'm like, there's probably been like 5 or 6 guys that do that. Yeah. But out of all the people that have kicked in the NFL, that's not a real high percentage. So, you know, my body feels it. I've had 3 surgeries. It's good to not be kicking myself in the face for a living, but I miss it like crazy.
I bet. I mean, I saw when I did research on you and stuff like that, I saw a comment, I think from last year, that said you feel like you could still kick in the NFL. Do you still feel like that a year later?
I do. I mean, I don't train for kicking. When I played, I trained specifically for leg speed, explosiveness, and this and that. Now I train to be in shape. But obviously there's still a lot of legs involved. Yeah. And flexibility is huge. I don't stretch as much because I still have partially torn muscles that I don't want to rip because I don't feel like getting another surgery. But I can. If someone said we need you in 4 weeks, I mean, I would be more than ready. I mean, I could kick today if I had to, but if they would give me 2 to 4 weeks, I'd be right back in the swing of things. Absolutely. It's like riding a bike, but you got to knock the rust off for a couple weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, also another thing I discovered in doing research for this interview, and it came up quite a bit, was the word eccentric. Now, I've sit here and I've talked to you for close to an hour now, and you seem like the most level-headed human being that I've met, and maybe probably the most level-headed human being I've had on this podcast, especially after the last couple of people I've interviewed. You wanted to go to college, and your main focus was getting an education, and football was just something you did, and you worked hard, and you understood the importance of teamwork and all those hard work. But there's that title of eccentric. Where do you think that comes from, and do you feel like you deserve that type of label?
I think a lot of it was, you know, I socially, like I used to go out. I enjoyed myself. I enjoyed life. We've all had our days where we had one too many drinks, and you know, you take pictures. I've had a picture with my shirt off that you look back at. I'm 36 now. It's not the most impressive thing, but when you're 25 and making good money and playing a sport that you love and having fun, you know, it's not really that bad of a thing. I had crazy hair. And that was just, I shaved it like it is now, and then I let it grow the whole season. Then I cut it in the off season, kind of thing. But other than that, I mean, I'm very outgoing. I'm a people person. I'm cool with everybody until you give me a reason not to be. So I don't really, it doesn't bother me. People can say what they say, but I've been in a couple situations that I got in trouble as well. And whether it sounds ignorant when I explain it to you or not, I still got in trouble. I was in the spotlight in the wrong way. So that can contribute to it. But all I have to say to those that, you know, to anyone that is a critic of mine, you're more than entitled to be. But we're all human. We all make mistakes. I don't regret anything that's happened. I've made some decisions, not only you know, when I got in trouble when I was playing football, but after football that, you know, I look back and actually regret is on the tip of my tongue, but it's a learning process for me. And so I think I'm extremely humble. I work hard at what I do. I'm passionate about radio and journalism and football and sports, and family and life. I'm not as passionate about some things that other people may be passionate about, but in general, I mean, I have my passions like everyone does, and I'm human. I put my pants on the same way, I take my shirt off and put it on the same way as everybody else. And I mean, I'm very grateful for what I do have, even though, like I said, as a greedy former NFL player, I haven't retired because I know I can still do it. And if somebody tells me you can't, then I'll try even harder to prove them wrong. And that's just kind of person I am. So I don't really have a filter. I'm not going to cuss you out or anything unless it's necessary. But if you ask me my opinion, I'll tell you the truth. And but as far as that title, it doesn't bother me. Yeah, it's whatever.
Yeah, because it's that, and just anytime something bad happens, it's going to be former Pittsburgh Steeler.
Oh yeah.
But at the same time too, it could be something that can open up doors for you in a sense. A former Pittsburgh Steeler, or I'm a former Pittsburgh Steeler, and the doors kind of open to you. But you also have that title when something goes bad, your reflection upon everything else. It's quite a responsibility.
Yeah, it is, and I mean that's a title that it was a path I chose. I mean, if I didn't want to play in the NFL, I wouldn't have played. So what comes with that? Sometimes, most of the time, it's good. But sometimes it's not so good. And like you said, if you get in trouble or in a relationship, I mean, I have a great girlfriend now, but I'm 36 and single. I mean, and that's basically because my past girlfriends knew what I did. So if I'm a cool guy and there's money there, then, when things go bad, I'll just leave them for somebody else with money kind of thing. And that's happened to me. So there's perks to everything, and there's also disadvantages, but I think there's more perks.
Well, as I sit right now, I'm in kind of a transition in my career. Professional wrestling was a big part of my life, and that was my focus for 10 years.
And talking about like WWE?
Yes.
Oh, nice.
And now I'm in a situation, in a similar boat that you're probably in, that I know that I'm getting a little bit older. I'm about 33, so I'm now trying to move into different things and explore different options and stuff like that. But there's still that sense of I would love to be doing it and doing it more.
Right.
But I know my options as a 33-year-old man are much more limited and stuff like that.
Right.
This is probably where you're sitting in your NFL career. Have you been dealing with that a lot? Because I have to do a lot of personal inventory a lot of times. I'm like, okay, this is no longer the most important thing in my life, and I need to focus on this. And you've got a lot of things you're focusing on too. You said you got your podcast, you got your radio, you got journalism you want to explore, because those things have always been on the back burner because of now football.
Right.
How are you dealing with that struggle? Because it's a tough struggle for me. I'm trying to figure out what I'm doing. That's why I'm doing improv comedy, stand-up comedy, trying to start this podcast, trying to do short films. I'm trying to throw so much against the wall, and it almost feels like I'm filling a hole for something that was my life.
Yeah, it's very overwhelming too.
Yeah.
And I'm sure I'm speaking for you. Like I said, I have a sales job, and I took that because I know a lot of people in the businesses where I can sell this item, but I haven't sold one yet. It's discouraging. I can be a salesman because I am outgoing, but that doesn't mean I have a product that everyone wants. So I'm a salesman. I am on Voice America Internet Radio. I'm a motivational speaker. I coach kids. I'm looking for jobs in the Charleston, South Carolina area. Because, one day that's the plan, that my girlfriend and I and the kids move there. And that's a tough place, even a tougher place to find a job, because most people are in banking or they're retired there. So I have all that going through my head. On top of that, I'm trying to be a happy person. I'm going to church. I'm trying to get back to the community and charity events and my church, do some outreach stuff, and be a good boyfriend and father to the kids and my girlfriend, and be a good son to my parents. And it's like, and I focus too much at times on money instead of because I see bills coming and I'm not really making anything. And yes, I made good money then, but that's been 4 years removed. So, money disappears. You have to pay bills for life.
And there's certain expenses and stuff like that. And the money that you made there.
And this and that.
Yeah, because you're no longer, you don't have that vocation anymore. Yeah, so pretty much the money you make in NFL is what you got to live off for however you're on your back end.
And if I was 50, it'd be a lot different. Yeah. But I just turned 36. So I'm going to work for a while.
You have to find a second act.
Right. And I'm using my major finally, which I should have done 2 years ago, but I've really taken it serious the last year because I was just living and enjoying my life and spending money and training and trying to get back in the NFL, and that's my only focus. And then I was like, well, obviously this isn't working out. my bank account is declining, so I need to do something. So now, since I'm trying so hard to get a consistent income and a consistent job, it's not appearing.
Mm-hmm.
But once you get one thing going for you, 10 things happen. Mm-hmm. And we know that's how it is in life. So the way I'm dealing with it is I wake up, I work out because working out puts me in a good mood, even though it sucks while you're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I realize I'm doing similar to what you're doing. I do Wednesdays. Every Wednesday I do it live on Voice America Radio, 4 to 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I do that. And I still work with my kickers. And I'm actually running the University of Pittsburgh special teams portion of their football camp, which is I have to study some stuff because it kind of caught me off guard, but I can't say no because I want to coach at one point. And the only reason I'm doing that is because, it's the Pittsburgh connection, but the special teams coordinator there used to coach me at Chapel Hill. So that's a good connection. So I have a lot of things on my plate. I have a charity event this weekend. I have a charity event the following weekend. I have to speak to kids the following weekend. Which is good. I like to stay busy, but sometimes when you sit there and apply for jobs 2 or 3 days in a row and you don't see any positive feedback, you just see people or you're not qualified or they just ignore you or we've gone a different direction, like I've heard numerous times.
Yeah.
It's very disheartening. And so right now I'm struggling with being overwhelmed because I have some huge life decisions to make, and it starts today. Mm-hmm. And so with me, I don't like to I don't like to focus on money because even though it's nice to be stable and be able to go places and spend this and go out to nice dinners and get your bills taken care of with no problem, if that's how you live your life, you're not going to be happily forever after. And so I'm trying to get away from money and focus on my goals and happiness because if I know that if I'm not happy, I can only be fake so long before people figure that out, and then I make other people unhappy.
It's almost like you have to control the few things you can control because everything you were doing before was controlled by somebody else and stuff like that. You just have to figure out these are the things I can control. I can control, working out. I can control, my job, whatever I do here. You know what I'm saying? Like I can control this, and I know that I don't have to rely on anybody else and anybody else's decision because. You always hear that, we're going this route or this route. But no. The only route that you can go in the stuff that you do is the route you choose.
Right. And I read something in this book one time that says it was about worrying, adding no days to your life and no life to your days. But that's kind of like when you stress about stuff, it's pretty much worry. Mm-hmm. And it basically gives a breakdown of percentages. And what it says is 8% of the stuff that you actually worry about you can control. 92% is not even in your control. Mm-hmm. And that goes anything from weather to people calling back to depending on people to whatever it may be. So I'm trying to live by that. I'm not there yet, and I know I'm not there yet because I wake up tense, and it's not a good feeling to put that extra pressure on myself because I don't want to buckle.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, Jeff, it seems like you're in the right direction, the right path right now. We've kind of gone a little bit into overtime on this interview and stuff like that, but it was a wonderful conversation. Is there anything else you want to let people know about anything coming up with you, social media, things you're doing, businesses, media opportunities? What are some things you want to let your fans know about what you're doing now and what your life is centered around?
Well, on Twitter, you can follow me at the real Jeff Reed. I'm obviously on Facebook. You can like Barely Controlled Radio on Facebook. What was my podcast, like I said earlier in the show, that I was branding myself along with my producer. I have now got a promotion to Voice America Internet Radio. A lot of listeners. Obviously, I don't make any money on that without sponsorship, but it is a way bigger stage, so I can take call-ins. I'm on the Variety Channel every Wednesday live, and hopefully I get another day in there as well. But it's hard work. It's good. It's fun work. I enjoy doing it, but it's not easy. I'd like for everyone to be a part of that. Other than that, if you want to book me for an appearance or motivational speaking appearance, whatever it may be, I have a lot of stories to tell. And I learned a lot of life lessons, some the hard way, but I'm still on my feet. So that's pretty much it.
All right. Well, Jeff, thank you for taking the time today. I appreciate you coming on the program today.
Yeah, man. Thanks for coming by, and hope you got what you want.
Oh, I definitely did.
All right. Thank you.